President Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff is in Saint Petersburg, Russia, meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The U.S. is urging Russia to accept a long-term ceasefire agreement in Ukraine. President Trump wrote in part on Truth Social Friday, quote, "Russia has to get moving. Too many people are dying." At the same time, in Brussels, European nations are promising to send billions of dollars in additional military aid to Ukraine. I'm pleased to say CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata joins us now. Okay, I mean, look, the question that we all want to know, you've got EU nations renewing vows for Ukraine military support. How far are we from a potential ceasefire?
Kelly, it seems a long way away. President Trump, before that tweet, he said he's peed off with Putin. Stronger language than that. It's worth noting that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth did not attend that Ukraine meeting in person, but via video conference. We didn't even know that was going to happen until yesterday. But the way the EU ministers put it, they say Putin is in no mood for peace. In fact, they said this morning that peace is out of reach. So to that end, in practical terms, they announced $23 billion in military funding. Germany is pledged to provide air defense systems. That's really important. That's what Ukraine needs most. Patriot missile systems. And in a way, the United States kind of would be responsible for backfilling that stuff. The Trump administration has, and Hegseth, Defense Secretary Hegseth, have been urging European allies to take the lead. So they'll be pleased at what happened. So that is what's happening. But, I got to tell you, we've been monitoring it here. And the Russians have been pounding Ukrainian positions with no let-up at all. And Putin has continued. I mean, he even moved the goalpost by saying that not only President Zelensky, Ukrainian President Zelensky, is illegitimate, but so is his government. So he's digging in. And there might be some sort of breakthrough because Witkoff has gone to Russia to find some common ground with Putin, but it feels a long way off at this moment.
I'm glad you mentioned the point about the EU sort of taking the lead here, because I also noted that is something that President Trump has been pushing for. And, I thought that was noteworthy. But look, I want to talk also, while I've got you here, about another key meeting that is happening soon. I mean, Iran and the U.S. will hold critical nuclear talks Saturday in Oman. What can we expect there?
There's a lot going on. So President Trump had warned Iran that Iran is going to have a bad day if talks fail. And today he actually doubled down on that threat, saying they'll be held to pay if Iran doesn't agree to get rid of its nuclear program. What that looks like, we actually don't know yet because, again, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, he's going to have a busy weekend. He said, for starters, that red line will be to stop Iran from being able to produce a nuclear weapon. And by the way, intelligence suggests that they're getting close. But it may mean dismantling the entire nuclear program. And as I've reported, we discussed it before, there is a lot of military hardware in that region now. Just yesterday, another aircraft carrier arrived. So you got 2 aircraft carriers, half a dozen destroyers, another couple of cruisers, missile launch cruisers, F-16s, F-18s, F-35s, B-2 stealth bombers. And Iran's air defenses have been crippled by Israeli airstrikes. So really in no military position to have any kind of leverage.
Yeah. You were listing out all the things. I'm like, yeah, you're right. There are a lot of them.
There's a lot there.
Yeah. Really quickly before I let you go, a headline caught my eye that I wanted you to opine on. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth plans to cut $5.1 billion in DOD spending. Which contracts and services are going to be impacted?
Yeah, Kelly, that's a lot of money. But we're also talking about an organization that has already spent $890 billion. So he described it as non-essential spending. He mentioned the Defense Health Agency contracts. Largely, these are consulting services, largely financial consultants. I mean, it was a very brief address that he made. It also includes Air Force contract for like IT and cloud services. So a lot of consulting, a lot of financing, but he also took aim that he said this includes contracts had to focus on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Climate change, COVID-19. He has already mentioned that he was going to target that. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that these are the programs that Hegseth had targeted even before it becoming defense secretary, and he said it comes in the wake of Elon Musk's Doge efforts here at the Pentagon. And I can tell you, we've seen a lot of Doge individuals walking around in these offices. He also pressed pause on more than $500 million in funding to Northwestern and Cornell universities, because he said that's in line with President Trump's policies to stop federal funding of what he called academic institutions, to tolerate anti-Semitism and support divisive DEI programs.
A lot of ground covered today with you, Charlie D'Agata. Thank you.